Welcome to BioBalance Healthcast. I'm Dr. Kathy Maupin.
And I'm Brett Newcomb, and today we're going to talk about sex and orgasm.
Our favorite subject.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to talk about sex in a somewhat non-traditional way, at least in the beginning. We want to talk about the physiological components of what are involved in sexual experiences. But those same physiological components can be experienced sort of unilaterally and in non-sexual ways. So we're going to define sex when we get there as being about relationship and intimacy. But there are physical issues that similarly get involved. Kathy and I were talking before we started. It's a known fact among physicians and nurses that baby boys in the womb get erections.
They do. And they stimulate themselves.
In the womb.
We can see it on ultrasound.
You can see it on the ultrasound. So the first porn movies are actually the ultrasounds, except that they're not. You know, one of the things that happens is that young children physically stimulate their genitals for stress release. I mean, you find kids that live in incredibly stressful environments. So the teachers, elementary school teachers, see this all the time, more commonly with little girls. They masturbate. They sit in class and they masturbate by wiggling their legs or touching themselves or rubbing against the desk or something as a way to distract themselves because it feels good, it's pleasurable, but also because it focuses them in on a positive experience instead of out in a stressful and horrific environment.
And I mean, you're the counselor, but I always tell mothers who are worried about this that if they don't tell their children it's bad, but they tell their children there's a time and a place for everything, and that in public this is probably not the best thing to do, but to do it in the privacy of your own room.
It's the same lesson you teach them about blowing their nose.
I know.
It's a
sex,
private experience.
The minute you talk about sex, everybody freaks out.
Yes. Well, and they think that you're being a pervert of some kind because you're saying, well, their little child is having sex or is somehow maybe been abused, something's going wrong somewhere because they're doing things that we generally identify as being sexual behaviors. So are these children sexualized? Is there an issue of abuse?
Right, and we have to look for that.
So you have to walk the fine line, and you do have to be aware, and you have to, I spend a lot of time doing teacher training workshops and talking about some of these exact things. The question becomes, what are they doing and why are they doing it? And the why they are doing it goes beyond, when it becomes an area of concern, it goes beyond just the physiological experience of feeling better.
It becomes a need
so then these
to
children
cover something else.
Acquire social values and spiritual religious training that then teach them how to modify these physical behaviors, how to engage in them in permissible ways, acceptable ways, societally limited ways, so that they're not getting themselves in trouble because they don't fit within the societally expected norms. But physiologically, it's still there. And so then as a counselor, one of the things that sometimes comes up for me is when we talk about sex as a form of intimacy and sex in a relationship, because you get to the whole issue of things like pornography and the objectification of women or of sexual imagery, which is all about the object and the physical stimulation, but it's not about intimacy, it's not about relating, it's not about mutual benefit, it's not about mutuality at all. So we talk about sex as a physiologically derived behavior, and you can break it down and we'll talk about the elements of orgasm, the elements of testosterone. And you were telling me that young boys and girls before puberty still have testosterone in their systems, that they're born with it, which is part of why this physical stuff can happen for them.
The little boys make quite a bit of testosterone when they're in utero. Women can often feel different when they're carrying a boy child than when they're carrying a girl child.
Because they get an added dose of testosterone because their blood circulates through the same system. Well, I did not know that. That's interesting.
And they share it. It crosses the placenta. If I delivered triplets that had quads that had one girl and 3 boys, and the little girl's clitoris was enlarged because she had absorbed the testosterone from these 3 little boys, and it wasn't permanent. It was something that had happened in the last trimester, and it went away.
So when she became independent on her own internal systems and
Right.
they weren't cross-circulating all these chemicals,
Right.
then her natural balance asserted itself.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. So we have our testosterone in utero. We have it as children. I mean, little kids can be kind of attracted to each other. That has to do with not just being friends, but a different kind of attraction. When little boys flirt with little girls, that has something to do with hormones. It's not puberty hormones. It's not that extent of hormones, but there's a little bit there, and that's part of what makes them boys, or what makes them girls, because girls have some testosterone to begin with and estrogen, but estrogen's a little bit more dominant. But we hit that peak after puberty. We start going up to a peak and then flatten out at around 18 or 19. So we do get a lot more than when we're children after puberty, but that still exists. Sexuality is a matter of roles in a society. It's a matter of how we view ourselves as fitting in to a society. I view myself as feminine, female.
Right.
And even though I have 3 times as much testosterone as estrogen, like all women, I still am feminine
Feminized,
and female.
according to cultural values.
Right.
Right. So you have the physiological development, but as that occurs naturally due to the growth and development of the body, there are social messages and social definitions that begin to be applied. And I mean, those are complex social problems, you know, the whole...
Or good social things. You have to have, society
Right.
has to have
Roles.
kind of roles for men and women, and they are getting crossed. I remember when my daughter came home from kindergarten and told me that only boys could be doctors, and I was an OBGYN from before she was born. And she told me that because that was what she was learning in school.
When I was preteen, my father had a hysterical fit because he came home one day and I was playing with dolls with the little girl who lived across the street. And he was a traditional Southern male, and he went into this bombastic tirade about no son of mine is going to play with dolls. However, it was okay to have an action figure. I had a G.I. Joe, which was a doll, but it was a war doll, and it was different. I could play with those, but I couldn't play with the little, you know, Barbie and Ken stuff.
That's what society teaches us, and there are reasons for all of that, and so each society has its own norms. I mean, currently, U.S. is under the also religious beliefs, not just societal beliefs, but religious beliefs, and we're under the Judeo-Christian belief, and some of that through time has caused a lot of guilt to be associated with sex. Sex has been considered bad. Masturbation has been considered bad. Self-stimulation has been considered bad. And so every human being comes through their own hormones, their own parents, and God knows parents don't have a book on how to train their children. And maybe if we did, it would turn out better. But we're kind of trial and erroring it as we go. So the child's dependent on their parents. Hopefully they have them, and family unit. And then when they get to being sexual beings at puberty, they're trying to find their way with their own sexuality.
Kids don't come with a manual, and neither do adults. I mean, that's why the divorce rate is so high. That's why there's sexual issues and guilt and shame and fear in terms of adult behavior as well, because it all is interwoven with the concept of lifelong marriages, love-based marriages, committed relationships and intimacy. I mean, all of those things are factors that are woven in, around, and among the physiological components. And so when we talk about sex in a relationship where the primary purpose would be to stimulate and enhance the level of intimacy and mutual connectivity. If that's what sex is used for outside of procreation, but if it's used to make the fabric in the relationship stronger, better, enduring, satisfying, all of those things, then we also spend time within that context, or at least I do in my office when people come see me, talking about arousal, cueing. How does one signal I'm interested, I'm not interested, and how does one understand? If I'm interested and you're not interested in this specific moment in time, does that extrapolate into our general relationship? Or is it just a standalone event? Today you were tired, today you had a headache. But if you're tired and have a headache every time I cue you, then there's a larger message there.
Yeah, either
that we
she's
have to
mad
talk
at
about,
you,
we have
or
to
she
figure
doesn't
out.
have a sex drive at all, or something else is happening that's bothering her that she can't concentrate on the intimacy. It takes energy to have intimacy.
Well, and we talk about specific behaviors in terms of arousal, the whole foreplay, the dance that leads to an increase in sexual tension that then leads to sex and release or orgasm. How do we get there? What's the journey? What are the skill sets involved? I've had a lot of women tell me that they have to teach a man how to love them, how to hold them, how to touch them, how to satisfy them. And for that to happen, the women have to give themselves permission or be taught by their mothers that this is what you have to do and this is what you have to teach them. A common example, women talk about men not attending physical intimacy. They're not paying attention to it.
Right.
And so they get what we call fence post hugs. You know, in the morning when you're getting ready to leave or when you come home in the afternoon, it's like, hi, honey, I'm home, smack, kiss, touch.
Yeah.
And they're not paying attention. They're watching TV, they're thinking about cutting the grass.
It's just like burping for them.
It's just like burping. But it's not an act of intimacy. It's an act of social appropriateness. When I come home, I'm supposed to say, hi, honey, I'm home. I'm supposed to kiss you or give you a hug. But it's quick, snap, and gone. It's not stop and experience and connect. And sometimes we don't want it to be because it's inconvenient. I come home, I have to change clothes, I have to grab the kids and go to baseball practice. We don't want arousal to occur that can't be resolved in that moment unless part of our arousal pattern is building that delicious tension over hours towards a release. And so that's part of the flirting dance that we do as a couple. So we both know at the end of the day this is where it's going, but right now it's just, it's like an hors d'oeuvre. It's not the main course.
I didn't even know that was what was happening. Because when I first heard this from Brett, I'm like, oh, that's it? I mean, really, you don't think about it. You don't think about what the process is. In the very beginning of coupling or marriage or living together, takes a couple of years for a couple to come together and realize that how the cueing should go. Who says what? What's the normal, what's the normal rate you want to have intercourse? You don't talk about it, which is a problem. No one has been taught that I know of to talk about sex. I mean, they've been taught, oh, that's kind of nasty. You shouldn't talk about sex. You should just let it happen. Well, if you let it happen, sometimes it doesn't.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but I'm remembering a couple, young, fresh married couple.
I'm glad you weren't laughing at that.
They came in, and the woman was just irate because the man would come up without any warning at all and squeeze her breasts. And he thought he was being sweet and connected and copping a feel and getting aroused and all of those good things that were going to happen. And what she said to me, and this is a quotation, she said, he is not respecting my feminine parts. That's not respectful. There's no warning, there's no connection, it's out of nowhere. It's like you're in the mall and somebody reaches out and grabs you.
Yeah, she wants some lead up.
I want some lead up and I want some acknowledgement that I'm a me and I exist as opposed to I'm a breast that you can squeeze.
And that's because we marry people who are different than we are. I mean, that's part of genetic sorting. We're attracted to people that are different than we are, just enough different that we're not attracted to our sisters and brothers. We're not attracted to our parents, hopefully. But it's not normal to be. But we're attracted to people who are enough different, and that difference is great at the beginning and usually ends up being the reason that they conflict later. And sometimes it's a reason they don't communicate the same way. Some couples communicate completely non-verbally. They can do touching, but maybe it's one of the people in the couple that has their, the love languages. Their love language is cooking a nice dinner. Whereas the love language of this guy was touch.
I regularly say to people,
that's different.
Ask her what you can do that says to her, I love you.
I wonder how often they actually do that.
Well,
That's a very scary thing to broach that subject, because every time you ask a question in a couple, as within the couple, there's so much hanging on the answer to that question.
Oh my God.
Because the other person could say, stop it, I don't want to talk about this, leave me alone, or I don't, and...
Yeah, if you offer to open that door and they slam it shut, that's a rejection.
Then what do you do next?
And then it's scary, exactly.
And then what do you do next?
But it's not a defense to say, I tell her I love her all the time, and this is the way I tell her. I bring her flowers. And she says, you've seen that on a movie, but that doesn't mean jack to me. You know, you bring me flowers, I think you've done something wrong, or
Right.
you want something. It doesn't say you love me. And so then I ask her, what could he do that says to you, he loves me? And she said, he could take the children for the night and put them to bed and do the dishes and say, honey, you go take a bubble bath and relax. And he's like,
everybody's different. Well, I didn't know that.
No, exactly. But that's specific to her.
Well,
so the challenge is,
go
how
through
do we
the love
communicate?
languages. The love language is the way you communicate. I mean, who's the author that Chapman went through and gave us 5 love languages, and I didn't really think about this when we were initially talking, but communication's everything, and if you communicate one way and your partner communicates another way, it's like he's speaking Russian. Yeah. You aren't going to communicate, so there's touch as one of the love languages.
And you aren't going to get laid either.
That's true. No one's going to get laid.
At least not satisfactorily.
Yeah, or without any foreplay. Anyway, there's touch, and not everybody has that as their love language. There is quality time. There's service. Quality time's like just sitting in the same room and talking and hanging out and discussing things over dinner. There is acts of service, which is what this woman wanted. She wanted him to clean up and do her work so she could relax, so she could get into the mood.
Right.
And now I'm having trouble.
And feel cherished.
And feel cherished.
Yeah. Right.
But that's their languages we're not speaking, so you have to kind of learn another language.
Right.
And not all of us are great at other languages. So let's see.
Not all of us are great at any language.
And then the other's words. What have I forgotten?
I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank.
But there's a different way for everyone to communicate. Oh, gifts. I'm sorry. Gifts.
Yeah. Where's my ring? Where's my new car?
And it's giving gifts or receiving gifts. I love to give gifts, but I'm not so hot on receiving them.
Same thing with compliments. You're very good at giving compliments, you don't receive them very easily. And that's very pandemic in our culture as well. You have to teach your children how to receive a compliment and make eye contact and say thank you. Most people are like, I really love that blouse. Oh, I got it at Target. Well, what the hell difference does that make? I think it looks nice.
Yeah.
You're dismissing what I've just said to you. You're not allowing yourself to hear it.
That means you don't get the full
full
measure of the self-esteem that you should have after that compliment.
Okay, so obviously, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about sex in terms of specifics.
Relationships.
But we've been talking about it in terms of the difficulties that it provides. We're going to continue this conversation in a couple of additional podcasts. Hopefully, you will look for them. In the next one, we're going to talk about orgasm and what it is physiologically and where it happens and how it happens for women. What else are we going to talk about?
Basically that, and then anorgasmia and why that happens. People who have never had an orgasm or did and don't anymore, and what is required to pull you back into
what's involved in that
having an orgasm, and that's both psychological and medical. So that's perfect for us.
So where can they reach us?
They can go to my website at biobalancehealth.com or go to podcast@biobalancehealth.com and send us an email, send us some ideas of what you'd like to hear. Or you can call my office at 314-993-0963.
You can always reach me at brettnewcomb.com.